program in the United States. And such a well-decorated man, he's very active in these avenues, especially high-level fora for advocacy. You will find him at COP, most recently COP27. I know currently you are in Lome. So Olumide, please take the floor.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Although a bit
Hello,
faintly.
Amanda, can you?
Yes, Olu.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I might not be able to put on my camera, but I'll try my possible because the internet here is bizarre. Let me call it like that. So thank you.
Okay, all right. Since okay, we will go. We can't hear you so well. But I think you're requesting to speak later, if I heard you right.
Yes, if you can speak in another. If you can hear me now, can I speak?
We can hear you. I'm not sure if you're able to get to a place without a lot of background noise.
Okay, so is it possible now? Can I speak?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me say thank you for giving me this opportunity to be part of this conversation. I'm very sorry for the mix of time because I was in Nigeria when I was contacted. Moving to Togo, Canada just gets summer. But first thing I want to say is really thank you to the team for constantly recognizing young people because we are no more the future, but rather we are the future of now. And it's very important that we continue to engage and create that space. Looking at the topic we are talking about today, which is something that is very, very important. How can we, as young people, how can we try to build our voices and create an advocacy space for people? How can we promote the youth voice in advocacy and decision making? One thing I always tell my colleagues and friends is that young people are not asking for the table. Okay? Young people are not looking for that pulpit or the panel to speak again. But young people are now creating innovation rather than seeking for the power. So my first statement here is we are no more requesting for the table. We are only requesting for an enabling environment to make our innovation that is going to solve development problem to work. And if we are creating the spaces or we are creating an environment that will make our conversation and advocacy move forward, then there should be a safe space everywhere. So youth voice means a lot. And it also means not if the adult is not listening, if they're not giving us that enabling space to get ourselves involved. And we need to continue to also see how we can create an environment where we can be able to feel comfortable. We can be able to feel and take ownership of our ideas, of our innovation, and of our programs and projects, so that we'll be able to tell the story in a way whereby investors, responsible leaders, will be able to listen to us. So the space we are requesting for is just a space for us to occupy, but a space that will make us to create an enabling environment, a space that will help us to build an investment opportunity that will make us to understand that we are contributing to all the sustainable development, whether low poverty, whether climate action, whether no hunger, whether creating food for the local people. We need some space to be able to say, okay, fine, as part of the development of the nation, we the young people are also adding values to that space by creating more opportunity for ourselves and creating more innovation. So they need to understand us, they need to understand our perspective, they need to understand our value, they need to understand that we are active and we are ready to move. And I also say that young people presently, in as much as our leaders want to take us serious, it is also very important as we are creating advocacy, as we are creating innovation, we need to start looking at how can we take responsibility in political space. Because creating an advocacy, being a lead for a particular sector needs a decision, and that decision cannot be taken alone by young people, but can be guided by our leaders. So we need those space that our decisions will be able to be guided very well, and we cannot take ownership of our decision so that we can build an investment and we can build an opportunity for us to drive in that space that we want. I will end by saying that listening is very key. So we need our leaders to listen to us. And we need our leaders to give us the space that we enable them to listen to us. And when we're talking about projecting, promoting, pushing, there are a lot of open space. Social media is there now. It is high time for us, and I'm talking to my fellow young people, to start making use of this space, social media, to propagate the agenda, whether it's in food systems, whether it's in climate action, whether it's in talking about people living with disability. This is the high time to use those skills to promote and to push the action that we want our leaders to see, so that our actions, our conversation, our content can now build a complement efforts to what our government is putting as an agenda to achieve development across the value chain and across the world. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Olumide. Although it was a bit hard to hear you amidst the background noise, but I was able to pick a few things that you mentioned, and especially as you were coming to a close, your clarion call to the young people to push to action what you want the leaders to see. And I like that avenue that you've taken, in that it's not always, we want more space, but you're also throwing that challenge back to the young people. What actions are you taking beyond that? And also, I think some food for thought you did mention, that would be relevant to us as practitioners. The creation of an environment that will make you comfortable, or that would push your agenda further. And I think as you try and look for a quiet place, we would love to hear how then we can help you support that. And so we will segue into this, the practitioners. We did have another speaker from the Go Getters representatives who's currently not on the call. He is a farmer in Rwanda. He's called Jean-Claude Niyomugabo. But once he's able to join the call, I think we can hear from him as well. But I am happy to have, all my practitioners on the call, Damaris, Noreen, and Dio as well. So I will begin with the ladies. They say ladies first. And so now that we are talking about climate, and we've had our very strong climate advocate Olumide just wind up his presentation, we'll have Damaris Mungai, who is an environmentalist and has devoted her entire life to development changes related to environmental sustainability. She has been in wildlife clubs. She has been part of various environmental clubs, and she's joined national, regional, and international bodies working specifically in this environment area. In her current position at the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, she leads the Gender and Youth Portfolio at the Africa office. And over the years, she has successfully moved on different environmental aspects of development projects, while connecting them to broader matters such as poverty reduction, conservation economics, ecosystem management, development communication, as well as gender and youth, as the environment pillar is one that cannot be handled in isolation. That's true, Damaris. She holds a master's degree in water resources management, and she's well decorated with a postgraduate diploma. And she also studied environmental planning and management from the Kenyatta University of Kenya. Damaris, here we are talking about advocacy, and you are not new to this space. And so we'd love to hear from you what you've done and how you've done it. What has been the successes? Take it away.
Thanks very much, Amanda, and great to see all of you and to definitely see people that I have met in one way or another. Very nice to see you, Olumide, and great to see you, Victor. I see you right there, and definitely Amanda for inviting me. As she has just said, yes, I have been leading that particular portfolio in our UNEP office. And yes, one of the ways that we as the organization, we could say, have done or engaged young people in advocacy, one of them is just particularly providing spaces for, we could say, the youth to be to be part of our processes when it comes to the United Nations Environment Assembly. So how does this happen? I know one of us here, Olumide, is part of that particular movement. It's not just a movement. It's a process that allows people, particularly different, we could say, stakeholders, in this case, major groups, and these come in different forms. So we do have the private sector, we do have trade unions, we have farmers, we have faith-based organizations, we have women, and we have youth. And what we try to do is, because again, where I sit in the environment program of the UN, we normally would engage our work with partners because our member states are what we report to. But how do we report to member states when we are not hearing from the different stakeholders that come into being? And so we do have what is called the major groups and stakeholders forum. And within it, we have the youth constituent. And we do have what are called regional representatives. And in Africa, we do have our regional representatives from Africa. So I'm very glad, for example, to see Olumide on this call because he falls in that particular forum and he's part of it. And also some people from here, I think maybe Sayesan and all that. And what you do is play a very big role. It's one thing to say that we want to push a certain agenda, for example, right now, and based on all the work that you have been doing. Right now, the United Nations Environment Program is focusing on 3 areas, and this is because we listened to you. We listen not only to you, but we also listen to our member states and what they're saying. And so they are very keen on climate action, and they're very keen on issues of pollution action, and they're also very keen on nature action. And all these are coming from you. They're not coming from us. So every day we are implementing based on the advocacy that you have put on the ground. People like Olumide have spoken on climate constantly. And so we know climate is a big agenda when it comes to our continent. And so we would say we've provided that particular platform for all constituents to be involved. That is number one. Number two, this year I have been running a program. And this particular program, I am running it with an organization called the Africa Wildlife Foundation. Again, recognizing our 3 areas of focus, again, coming from constituents who have been speaking and youth being part of them. And this is on nature action. And so what we have been doing for the last year is that we had a call for applications, and the call was requesting if a young person out there would like to be part of what is called international environmental governance. And what is international environmental governance? It's everything we are talking about. We are talking about COP27, we are talking about CBD 15, we are talking about CITES, we are talking about the Food System Summit, we are speaking about all those. But what had come out, or while I was in this position, listening to people like Olumide, listening to people like Victor and Amanda, some of the things that came up is, yes, it's one thing to provide an opportunity to speak about these things. It's one thing to provide an opportunity to advocate for these things. It's one thing to seek for action, but then are you on the table and on the right table? So what we did this year is we came up with a program to train young people on negotiation. Why that was important is because it's one thing to attend COPs, it's another to be at the table and be part of the negotiation process. So we've been training young people in the last 1 year to be part of negotiation processes, while at it seeking for member states to allow young people to be part of delegations, to be able to actually sit when these negotiations are happening. We know it's not a walk in the park. We do not want young people to be in these meetings and on corridors inside events. No, we want them to be in the real event. So whereas we are training them this year, the next point of action is how then do we now push for member states to see these trained young people in a space of succession? How do we allow then the young people to start getting into, the actual negotiation space? For those of you who've been in negotiation spaces, Lumide, I'm sure you'll attest to it, they are elderly and there is need for succession. So we are starting to work backwards and to see how then we move this particular agenda to the next step. So this is going to be happening, and for the next 2 to 3 years, training more people. And I would say one of the things that came out from COP27 is that the youth were able to speak out on the need for member states to start having delegations who are youthful as part of the country delegation. So that's an agenda I could say I am pushing from where I am seated. And you'll be seeing a call for applications coming in next year for the new cohort, because the first cohort is graduating actually just tomorrow, Friday. So, and what we did as part of practicals is that these cohorts were able to attend the Africa Ministerial Conference on Environment. Why it was important is because to go for such processes, you need to understand what your continent anyway is saying. They were able to go for the CITES meeting, which is all about transport of trade in endangered species. And then they have been able to go to CBD. They are in the CBD as we speak in Montreal, Canada, which is the Convention on Biological Diversity, not forgetting that they went to the COP27. So we've been giving them an opportunity to just see the bigger picture, because as a negotiator, you just don't go there to have a good time. It's real negotiations for your continent, for your country, and for the things that you're passionate about. But one of the things that came out also, UNEP was celebrating 50 years this year, and you were aware about what is called the Stockholm Plus 50. One of the legacy programs that came out of the Stockholm Plus 50, again, because of listening to young people, because they were highly engaged during the year, is what is called the Green Jobs Youth Pact. And this was actually launched during COP27. So this is again to say what you're doing and what you're saying, we are listening. And so what this Youth Pact is going to do is to provide an opportunity to bring in private sector, particularly the private sector, and also entities that believe in what we call green spaces and green jobs, to start providing opportunities for young people. Again, recognizing that not everyone can be an entrepreneur. I know there has been that narrative for a long time, but we are also going to school and studying so hard so that we can get good jobs, white-collar jobs that provide an opportunity for us to sustain our livelihoods. So this pact is going to allow and bring in different stakeholders to just be able not only to think about how to provide decent and green jobs for young people, but green jobs. So it's something that again that came out from Stockholm Plus 50, again, where the youth were highly engaged. So I know, Amanda, was just supposed to speak for 5. I know you're going to be asking me questions. I'll be bringing in more aspects that will be coming in. But one of the things, again, for entrepreneurs, if you know about I know I've spoken about the white collar job, but for those who are keen on entrepreneurship, we do have, again, based on what we've been hearing in terms of providing opportunities for livelihoods, is what you have called the Restoration Factory. This speaks very squarely, I think, in the platform I'm currently speaking in. And the Restoration Factory is trying to bring in young people who are innovative enough when it comes to the restoration movement. Again, why? Because we have a whole decade for ecosystem restoration. So we do have what is called the Restoration Factory. I'll share it on the chat here, because very soon we'll be having more coming up, especially in the different parts of the continent. Right now, it started in Kenya, and we do have 50 innovators that are currently being supported under that particular factory. So there's so much happening, and again, because of the advocacy and the activism coming from the young people in the continent. Amanda, I'll stop there for now. I know there'll be questions coming up.
Thank you, Damaris. Very, very rich content. And actually, I really love the structure of these members group call, because it just makes sense. We heard from Olumide on what they require, and then we hear from the practitioners, this is what we have, this is what we are doing. Have you made use, have you exploited all the opportunities that are there for young people to be heard? And I'd like to just there's something you mentioned, Damaris, especially about the training on negotiation. And I can see we have one of our partners and avid supporters from Bayer, Nila Harman Valente. We've worked together with her, and part of the initiative under Engine, amongst the inaugural programs they launched, was actually a training on how to, conduct yourself in UN bodies, because it's one thing to say you want change, but also understanding the process through which it takes. For those of us who follow, international news, which we all should, we've also seen some of these advocacy campaigns go awry because of the nature in which they're being conducted. Young people abusing using expletives before lawmakers, some things that don't go right. And I hope, Nila, you'll be able to stay on the call and also share with us as well some of the great initiatives you have been doing and you are still doing with Bayer, with Engine, as we go along. But I do remember that particular training. And also, I know you've mentioned some very high-level jargon that may or may not be understood by all, the likes of member states. And so there are those of us who can understand, but I do like the fact that, the push for youthful delegation, which has also been happening at the Committee on World Food Security. And I know Nila attended that as well. And so, Damaris, we'd love to hear more from you as we pass the baton round to hear as well. Thank you so much. We've heard heavily on climate action, and I'd now like to go to innovation and also gender equity and balance out this equation with a lovely gentleman with whom we also work with. I know Henry mentioned that Generation Africa is a thematic platform of the AGRF. We're also a partnership initiative. And so we work with several partners, and we are here thriving because of our partners. And so the next gentleman is Mr. Dayo Aduroja. He is the Youth and Innovation Lead at Heifer International, and Dayo has spearheaded several initiatives that touches on promoting young people in scaling up their innovations and innovations that are geared at promoting food sustainability in Africa. And I've had the pleasure also to work hand in hand with Dayo on some of the initiatives that they're spearheading, Pitch AgriHack, Ayute Challenge, just to name a few. And so Dayo, would like to hear from you on what you do, how you promote young people, and how the young people on this call can subscribe or join and learn more. Dayo.
Yeah, Amanda, thank you very much for the introduction. And also thank you, Damaris, for that great delivery on the work going on from your side of things. It's also great to hear from others as well, Olumide. This indeed is a great meeting point for great thoughts. I think the thoughts that have been reverberating in the room thus far have been quite great and interesting to see how that thinking is fashioning out. Well, I mean, thanks a lot, Amanda, again. Innovation essentially is where the rubber hits the road, in terms of how we progress on this conversation from our end. And at Heifer, especially from my side, we are very passionate. When we speak of advocacy, we are indeed passionate about data-driven advocacy. How is it evidence-based? How we review advocacy and how we action advocacy. How do we then treat advocacy from a youth-led approach, leveraging the voice of the youth? So how does the voice of the youth come into play? How is it shaping the narrative of the youth benefiting from these advocacy activities? So for us, it's critical because all of our activities in the advocacy space essentially emanate from well-designed and conducted research. Last year, we did conduct a research across the continent of Africa, where we got to speak with tens and thousands of young people to understand, youth challenges around the agriculture space. And we understand clearly that youth challenges are driven largely by youth unemployment. Okay, if we're speaking on youth challenges, especially in the ag space, then of course we cannot speak of that outside of the context of youth unemployment. So we have so many unemployed young people today. We over the years, we have consistently missed out. We are missing on those young youth employment targets, and it's becoming a great issue. It's becoming a compounding issue. So with so many young people who are out of jobs today, you would realize that the government, private sector will be unable to bridge that gap. So what that then means is that for us, advocacy essentially from this perspective will mean a complete paradigm shift from young people being job seekers to young people being job owners and job providers. Young people creating jobs, young people actually owning jobs. And in the space of all of this, I am carrying out this well-documented research piece. We get two key issues came out strongly from that work, and that is access to finance and access to technology. A lot of young people today are debilitated, in terms of how they are progressing, in terms of how they are earning a living income, due to the inability to access finance and access technology, and to farm or essentially to come into the ag space. So how well then does innovation come into play as a key advocacy piece to drive access to finance, drive access to technology, which are critically hot button items for young people in Africa today? How exactly are we de-risking youth involvement in agriculture? We've seen that traditional financial institutions are unable to analyze, to evaluate the risk around the scenario of young people in the place of agriculture. Financial institutions are overestimating this risk. There are too many obstacles, too many impracticalities in the process. How are we leveraging advocacy power to address all of these? How then do young people access the technical expertise? How then are we creating unorthodox access to finance practices, principles that support not just young people, but also the rural youths? How are we supporting young people in the rural areas operating below the radar to access the financing that enables them to live a dignified life? How well are we providing patient capital? Patient capital that is tailored to today's realities, that is tailored towards today's obstacles, that is going away from the traditional metrics that has not worked and will not work over time. What exactly are we doubling down on? So until our advocacy is able to drive this in a systematic manner, in what I call, scalability at speed, how we're driving scalability across the continent, then it is a heavy piece that we are then essentially not lifting. So essentially at HEFA, what we are doing around this is we have designed a platform we call our UTE. Our UTE is acronym for Agriculture, Youth and Technology. So what we are doing is through this platform, creating that enabling environment. We are creating that convening power, creating that platform that creates excitement, that elevates agriculture as a desirable occupation, that indeed creates the buzz out there that agriculture is indeed the future of Africa. And we are doing this through various innovative means of access to providing access to finance. Recently, through the same platform, we've been working with Hello Tractor. Hello Tractor, like we know, is providing innovative tractorization services to smallholder farmers across the continent, and also providing jobs. We are working with such social enterprises, okay, in a manner that essentially is creating social impact, is creating jobs in a scalable manner. Okay, when we are providing, when we provide a new tractor owner with a tractor, that tractor immediately is creating 3 other jobs. Okay, we have a tractor owner, we have a booking agent, we have a tractor operator, and so on. And all of this is being provided to a tractor owner in a manner that is financed in non-traditional means, meaning that this tractor owner gets to pay back on a tractor over a 5-year period. And of course, payments or repayments are only made when tractors are in operation and so on. That clearly is an unorthodox model. And HEFA working through this model is supporting thousands of new tractor owners in Africa, supporting more and more farmers in Africa. And we are promoting all of this, creating enabling policies, crowding in government and private partnership, the support that will enable this work to grow the scale. So access to finance is critical. Access to technology is also important. We've said in Africa that there is no lack of great innovation among young people in Africa. That is clear. We've combed the continent. We've seen there's so much going on above the radar, and there's even much more operating below the radar. But how are we able to unearth these great innovators who are doing a great job below the radar? How do we provide them with the enablement that enables these young people to shine and create solutions that addresses real problem in a manner that is also sustainably providing jobs? These are the critical issues, beguiling, impacting young people in Africa today. And for us, driving advocacy pieces along these lines is a critical factor. We've said it over and over again that technology is indeed a melting pot for young people around the world. And through the IET platform, we are attracting more young people in a manner that creates jobs, solve problems, address challenges in the ag space. And of course, it's ensuring that agriculture continues to become a desirable career option for young people today and tomorrow. So these are some of the areas where we are essentially leveraging advocacy to address real problems, evidence-based problems across young people in Africa today. Thank you so much, Amanda. Over to you.
Thank you, Dio. I like how we are, very carefully joining that full picture. We've heard strongly about the issues of environment and climate change, and here we are listening to you about, the pains of unemployment of the young people, and how, in your words, it's the technology being this melting pot on how we can unearth these great innovations and scale them up. There's also something interesting you say about unorthodox financial practices. Like, we have to do things differently, and unorthodox is one of the key phrases that I'll take with me. And I'd like to, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, convey the sincere apologies of Ms. Vimbai Masiiwa. She has sent in her apologies. She was to join in the call. She has just been roped into some expedient, or rather, she has an emergency that cropped up, and thus she sends her sincere apologies, and she really wanted to be part of this discussion. She had expressed her excitement to be part of this advocacy meeting, but this apologies have been well received, and so we will proceed with our next speaker. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we've seen the different facets. And now, as we spoke about, or rather as Dio spoke about unemployment, our next speaker will talk about business and business ownership and SMEs and how we can bridge that gap. So as Dio said, we're looking at young people not only to be job seekers, but also job providers. And with us here on this call is a lovely lady called Noreen Thiga. And Noreen is the Director of Programs, Management and Operations at the SME Advisory Unit, the Executive Office of the President. Fancy. Noreen spearheads the programs and operations activities within the SME Advisory Unit, and she brings on board effective management and organization skills spanning over 15 years. She continues to assist the unit in executing and set strategy, monitoring and evaluating programs, overseeing the day-to-day running, and she is well equipped with masters in organization development. And the micro SME sector is an area that Noreen strongly believes should be elevated and strengthened through public-private partnerships and intentional efforts. She remains passionate and dedicated towards the sector and has succeeded in advocating for SME voices, ensuring that they are availed with seats at important decision-making tables. I'm tempted to see whether you crafted your bio to suit this call, Noreen, because you are more than perfect for this role and touching on the topic. And so, Noreen, would like to hear from you. Please tell us more about the work you do and advocacy and, the business space for young people.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. It's a pleasure to be on the call this afternoon. And it's a pleasure to meet all of you virtually. I'm very sorry my background hasn't been changed from the last call. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be on the call. As Amanda has mentioned, my name is Noreen Dega. I work with the Executive Office of the President, where we work on matters SME. Just looking at how do we grow businesses to the next level. And since meeting Amanda and the Go-Getters, I've been intrigued, following most of them online and just amazed to see what the youth out there are doing. From a legislative and a policy-making point of view, of course, there are the hurdles that businesses go through. And I always advise the young ones, even as you think of that dream or, that vision that you have for your business, you also need to have health checks for your business. You need to know how healthy your business should be. I think that would guide the growth of your business, from registration and on to the growth level. And even as you now expand, because now that will be the later part of your business. And for your business to exist through the formative years, it is very important that you acquaint yourself with the information that's out there. Most of the times, people who have been in policy-making rooms or people who have engaged, just understood how the macro environment works, you've seen their businesses thrive because they know what is required of their businesses. For the youth, sometimes I feel the information is not adequate, sufficient out there, and that always causes a hurdle or is always a barrier in your journey to grow your business. But now we have innovative ways. And these innovative ways also will not call upon you just to tap into the social media platforms to learn more and the internet, but it would call upon you to collaborate, join hands with someone who's on that journey. And if you're on that journey and you're 3 steps ahead of someone, pull the next person up, bring them up, let them come along with you on the journey. Do not be scared to mentor and do not be afraid to be mentored. So networking is very, very important because that would now grow you into the collaboration with the next person. And the other thing is, when it comes to the tax space, because most of the matters, and this seems to always be an issue with young businesses, I do not know how to go about my tax. And locally here in Kenya, businesses, you can always, once you've registered, operate as your business registration name as you seek an alternative, because then if your business is growing and it's not matching to what it is that you're reporting, we have those culprits who are always filing nil returns. That complicates matters. And from a policy point of view, we are looking at how do we support these businesses. So like the SME policy, there's a lot of discussions currently going on, and also for the startups, because startups are huge. And this need to be differentiated from SMEs, because how you treat an SME should not be how you treat a startup, right? Because the startup is, at ideation stage, or even it's just at birth stage. So, as with your baby, you have to be very gentle. So the same applies with startups. So this, as a government, we've had discussions in the recent past and currently. How do we best support? Is it a tax holiday that we're looking at? Is it a special registration that we're looking at? All this that could cushion startups to be able to just give them the breathing space to be able to grow to the next level. So from where I sit, I would say the business journey is not easy. In fact, most who come out on the other side, they'll have stories to tell. So even as you go through your, venture, whatever it is you've set up on your idea on, or your heart on, I think it would be good to know that, at the end of it all, once you've sought the support that you need, you'll get out of it winning. So the message for me today is, do not walk alone. Right? Whether it is the information you're trying to access, whether it is the funding aspect that you're trying to access, do not walk alone. And for the government, officials who are there, it would be good if also we could create a human approach to how it is that we provide service to our citizens. Put yourself empathetically in their shoes and try to see, that person as you, as your child. I encourage my peers in government service. That is what we should bring, because right now in Kenya, 80% of the businesses are SME. And a colossal of the jobs are coming from that sector. So it would be good if it's given the intentional support, because an engine of a car, because SMEs are the engine of Kenya's economy. An engine of a car is the one that if it makes the slightest noise, you're popping your bonnet to see what's going on. So you're always making sure that your engine is well running, and that should be the same when it comes to the support that the government is giving this sector. So SME space is an area that I'm very, very passionate about. In some quarters, I'm also known as the MSME ambassador, and I love seeing businesses grow. And as I started out, I mentioned I've been following the Onion Doctor, Kim Planter, all these people that I've met through Go Getters. And not only is it a learning experience for me, just seeing what it is that they're doing, but it is also an encouraging experience for me to just see that farming is actually, the agri-space is actually so doable. It's not looking at your age. It's just, if you go in and you're well equipped and your heart is there and you have access to the information and sources of capital, it is very much doable. And I thank God we're at an era whereby, you get to see farmers from Zimbabwe, what they're doing, Uganda, South Africa. The youth around the continent are doing amazing, amazing stuff. And I wish that one day we could be able to just move in one voice, because today we're talking about the youth voices. Move in one voice, whether it's a hashtag that connects all of us, whether it's a movement, a recognized network that connects all of us. That will be awesome, and that will be fantastic, just to be recognized and to be known as the game changers, because you actually are the change makers, those in the agri system. So thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Noreen. You took the baton and ran with it and ended up winning the whole race. And it's also very touching, if I might say, when you said that you encourage your colleagues to be humane in the way they approach and deal with, if I might say, citizens. A humane approach to availing government services. How would they feel if someone else treated them the way they treat others? And that clarion call to collaborate. And that's why we have members group call. We have different stakeholders on this call. I see there Neela reaching out to Damaris that we need to discuss, we need to synergize. I see people asking for each other's contacts. We've also seen a sort of like Russian roulette going around. You'll see those same names. Damaris is speaking or talking about the likes of Olumide, the likes of Victor. You know, it's a very cozy space in the agri-sector field and more so in the field of advocacy. So thank you, our MSME advocates, and also for championing the various initiatives that you've led in government. And I do hope you can stay on with us as we open up the floor right now to Q&A. I see there is a hand up. Damaris is posting links in the chat. Noreen, if there are any links that anyone can sign up to or sign up for these various initiatives, please put it in the chat as well. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for us to just, just have these reflections and share our experiences on how it's been for you as a business, as a practitioner. And I see a hand here from Muhammad Usman. Please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm by name Usman Muhammad from Nigeria here. So definitely, I would like to talk on a few things which I had Dayo have spoken and also Damaris about the youth engagement, especially in the COPA 27. So most especially, I'm going to talk about the climate action, because when you watch the climate action, it also contribute to the agricultural aspect, because there are some species of tree, if you are going, let me go like this, which locally in the rural area, because I'm from a rural community, definitely, you see, definitely I want to talk to the rural community. You see, we observe that there are some little tree species that are no more in what? They are no more, which those species of tree fixing nitrogen, which some of us cannot afford fertilizer, but also fixing nitrogen for it to boost our production. Also, some part of tree are there that if we are going to give to our animal, well, assume it's going to boost the milk yield if it is through lactation. So you see, they are talking about innovation or youth engagement or youth advocacy. We are not looking into the rural community, because these are people who are leveraging on certain amount of life, because we are lag behind. We are lag behind. Even though we try to advocate, they assume meeting us is a problem. Likewise, let me call up myself. I've been conducting different research on climate action, especially a tree called Eucalyptus camadellensis, because it's part of the tree that some people come and give us for we to plant for climate mitigation, whereby we found that through my research, I found that that species of tree have some aliphatic reaction that if it is around the farm, you never see any plant growing close to it. You see, so we don't know, because that was the research. I conducted this research for over 2 years now. I'm still on it. So luckily, I found that this was the factor and this is what is bringing. So I want us to see if we can be able to work or give the rural people the opportunity to work towards the climate, because when they call on COPA 27, they call on the youth. We found that there's somebody of 37 years old, 40 years old is there representing the youth. I applied for this COPA 27, but luckily I was not able to be part of the committee who have been picked. But I found out that the youth there, those people that are ready, I always say something on Twitter that you cannot be able to study climate for 2 hours and come out and call yourself you are an expert. No, I study forestry. I know what it takes to be a forester. That is why I engage myself in climate action, most especially because in 1 hectare of land, it's very hard for you to see a single tree, especially indigenous species in Africa. So how are we going to counter that? And the initiative we are going to use, because I seriously need some people that we can partner to see that we help this rural community in tackling serious issues, especially in this climate action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. I will pass that to both Olumide and Damaris. And next up, I would like to call Victor Muko. And then after Victor, we'll have Neela.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And it's really great to see familiar faces in this place, as well as new faces as well. And I just wanted to echo what the previous speakers have spoken about, but also to pose a question, especially for the food and agriculture sector. We can already see advocacy and young people space in decision making, especially in innovation, in business, in the environmental space as well, being quite elevated. But for the food and agriculture space, we still have a long way to go. I would hope that we can be able to replicate what especially the environmental and conservation space is doing for young people. And I think that's the same reason why the World Food Forum was started. It started as young people who are employees of FAO, really seeing that young people were not at the level where they were in terms of decision making, and in terms of their co-creation of programs, co-creation of solutions towards agri-food transformation. And so I think there's a need to create deliberately meaningful spaces for young people to contribute towards food systems transformation one way or another, that is devoid of tokenism, that is also representative of young people engaged in agriculture. Second, I think the space can also be very technical, as mentioned by Olumide and Damaris. And so things as negotiation also take a lot of time and skill to learn. And so there's need for capacity building for young people to be able to negotiate at par with other demographics. And so also simplifying the language so that those people who, let's say, rural farmers who do not have the opportunity to even attain this can be able to engage in such. And then lastly, I think also advocacy and also taking part in decision making and in policy spaces for young people also takes a lot of unpaid work. So very many processes go into this. And young people are quite engaged in this, but it also entails a lot of unpaid work. But also, it would be good to see how young people can also make a living out of this, so that they can meaningfully contribute. Some of the young people drop off from great advocacy spaces, and their expertise is also lost because they cannot be able to participate in this space. So how we can also encourage them through remuneration and fair remuneration for that part. But yeah, those are my points, and I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you, Victor. You've remained consistent throughout, and we always appreciate your support. And you've raised a very important issue that should not be taken for granted. It's one thing to say that, yes, we are advocating for something, but do you have the technical know-how to go about your advocacy? As Damaris said, it's not just about just knocking on doors and raising placards in the streets, but how do you translate that concretely into either policy? Are the young people aware of several avenues? The likes of voluntary guidelines, that there always calls for that. I know with the CFS, the multi-year program of work, there was extensive work that went into that. And Nila's hand is up, and aptly so, because I know she's very well conversant with all these issues, and not only is she conversant, she's doing something about it to make sure young people are equipped to negotiate at decision-making tables. So Nila, take it away.
Thank you so much, Amanda, and thank you everyone for making room for this important call, because it is really important. And I am once again so inspired by everything I heard. So I took notes here, and my mind is going 100. In fact, I'm really encouraged to simply second what Victor just shared, because those are a few of my key points as well. I do think we need to all recognize, and the international policy arena needs to recognize, people who farm do that for a living. That is one, and it takes a lot of time and effort, and nobody just goes out there and does it for free or anything. It is a business, so it's very important. And farmers and people in the agricultural space, they do need to make a living with what they provide. Also for ecosystem services, for example, to tap into the climate conversation. So I think this is one. And then, of course, that is a big challenge for the policy advocacy at national or regional or international levels, because policymaking requires a lot of time. Just like Victor said, I mean, it really takes time, it takes skill, it takes understanding of how the system works, because there is a considerable amount of bureaucracy involved as well, as Damaris also pointed out. So so these things I just wanted to point out, and I think it is a challenge. And maybe we have to also, in a case-by-case approach, we have to also assess who takes what role in the communities, in the policy sphere. Not everyone maybe wants to be an advocate in the international policy sphere or even national policy sphere, but rather focus on their business. And that is also fine. But the needs of people who are doing the business and who are doing the agricultural production, the ecosystem services, etc., they still need to be heard. So the channels need to be found. So I just wanted to share that. Then also maybe just briefly, because you mentioned it, Amanda, thank you so much. And you see my little logo here. I am, of course, working for Bayer, so the international company. But I am here also speaking as the chair of Engine, a multi-stakeholder platform that Generation Africa is also a founding member and coalition partner of, which has the overall goal of making agriculture an attractive place to pursue a livelihood in. And that means attractive in the sense of all three pillars of sustainability: the environmental, the social, and the economic, because all of them are very, very important. So we are trying to position young people basically everywhere, but not only to do that for young people, but do it with young people, so that there is always this reality check if whatever Engine comes up with as an opportunity is an actual opportunity for young people, because it matches needs. What I like to highlight as well is we have a group of young people who are Engine ambassadors, and they came up with something so crucial. Maybe if you visit our website, you will see our ambassador Willa Saktia from Indonesia sharing, I don't just want to be inspired, I want to inspire too. And that is also in line with what has been mentioned on this call before. It's of course crucial to call for action, but it's also important to commit to act. So we're hoping to enable that through Engine. And in fact, Engine is very new still. We've only been running for 1 year. And I do hope, in fact, together with the coalition partners, that we can boost this engagement in the next year and years. So we're looking for partners. We're hoping to really be out there and amplify about the opportunities in agriculture. And I'd be very happy to talk with anyone who has an interest in learning more about it. So here's to youth. You're making the change happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Nila. I love what you said, that it is crucial to make a call to action, but of greater importance is to commit to act. If there's anything you need to take away from this call, I think you need to take away that. I think that's the heart and soul of advocacy. And we have less than 10 minutes remaining to the end of our call. Muhammad had asked a question which I had posed to Olumide and Damaris. I don't seem to see Olumide on the call anymore, but Damaris, if you could quickly respond to Muhammad, and then we can do, I will hand over to my colleague Sophie if we do not have anything further from the floor. So Damaris, take it away.
Thanks very much. Actually, you're right. You're right, Mohammed. There is currently, we could call it a new dispensation of young people who either are passionate about the climate space, but not very aware of very many intricacies. So not many people take the time to research, not many people take the time to understand the science. And that is why I think I like what you're doing, where you're trying to create evidence so that when you speak about a certain species, you know exactly what you're saying. For example, we've been pushing for you're hearing a lot on countries taking up the agenda of tree planting. You're hearing countries speaking about how many, for example, in Kenya, just the other day, there's a whole, the new government has said that they're going to plant a certain number of trees. I'm currently in Addis Ababa, and again, we do have what is called the Green Legacy Initiative here. And all they're doing is speaking about trees and what they need to do. You already know about the Africa Union Great Green Wall initiative, again, all about trees. But then what is the science and what is the evidence behind that? And that is why we need you people like Mohammed. We need young people like you who are, we could say, scientists who actually are speaking from a point of knowledge. It's one thing to be an activist because you're very passionate about it and because you feel it's the new thing to speak about, but then we need people like you, yes, Mohammed, who go into the space and take time, 2 years, understanding a species and seeing how it affects an ecosystem, because that's what we've been speaking about, landscape restoration. Landscape restoration is first understanding what is affecting a certain landscape, and then what needs to be done to restore that landscape. So yes, we need that kind of, we could say, engagement from young people who are scientists, who are citizen scientists, who can to some extent provide evidence and data. And that way, we could say organizations then can come in and provide such opportunities. But the one thing then I need to again remind people is understanding the mandates of different organizations is an important thing. From where I sit, the United Nations Environment Program is a program that was constituted as a catalytic organization that provides the science, provides the policy interface, and then works with stakeholders to action. And so we will constantly, you will hear us speak about partnerships because we create the science and then the policy framework and hope that our member states will create an enabling environment for the evidence that has been created to become action. So for example, you've spoken about food systems, Victor. We currently are partnering with the Food and Agriculture Organization as well as the Worldwide Fund for Nature. And what we are pushing is for young advocates on food systems, again, recognizing how the environmental space affects the availability of food. So we definitely provide that kind of space, and we continually seek for processes become easier to actually attain. And so again, I would just like to echo that, Mohammed, you're really right. And definitely there's need for that kind of science to be put in place. I can still see Olumide, but yeah, that's my thinking.
Thank you, Damaris. You've been very extensive. That indeed advocacy is evidence-based. A lot of misconception around advocacy is demonstrations. Advocacy is not about demonstrating. It's not about just raising your placard and saying we want change now. And as Neela said, you're not committing to acting. It's not backed by science. It's not backed by evidence. There's also a bureaucracy to which someone should go through. I know those in the climate space are well aware of Coronivia. I mean, you just can't go there and speak out of the blue. And I also like what Victor said before we had to drop off, a clarion call also for us in the food and agriculture space to create more avenues, especially for advocacy. The climate action people have gone ahead of us. I know you have the United Nations Major Group for Women and Children. There's UNGO. There's UNFCCC that convenes every year, or what people know as COP. But aside from the Food Systems Summit, which was grand last year, we need to have more fora and more avenues for that. I know we also have CFS as well, but in the food and ag sector, it would be great to have more of that. And this has been very invigorating, very interactive, but every good thing comes to an end, good people. And so thank you so much for interacting. Please continue on the chat box. I see all this back and forth with Tony, Mohammed, Nila, Damaris, everybody. Please keep interacting, share your links. Practitioners, we're sharing your links. If you're an SME, please share what you do. And I will hand over to Sophie Nabuliri.
Thank you, Amanda. Mine is just to say a very big thank you to our speakers. Thank you, Damaris, Dayo, Olumide. We also had Noreen. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your insights with us. And also thank you to all our partners in the room, Nila, and all our members and colleagues on the call. We appreciate you for taking the time and joining us for this very, very important conversation. If you're new here and would like to be part of the members group call, kindly send an email to members@genafrica.org. And I've quickly just typed that into our chat group. And so a big thank you. And from the Generation Africa Secretariat, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.